Disclaimer, this video is based on fictional stories created for educational and inspirational purposes. The characters, events, and situations are not real. Any similarity to actual persons or events is proof to lead anyone.
My name is William Carter. I am 99 years old, and if there is one thing I can say about my life, it is this: I have never stopped working. Not once. Not even when life was crushing me. I was born in 1925 in a small, cold neighborhood on the outskirts of Chicago. Life was not easy back then. It didn't wait for you to get ready. My father was a factory worker, a quiet man. Every night, he would come home dusty, sit in a wooden chair and say nothing. But I understood. Even as a child, I understood that silence. Then one winter, everything changed. I was 13. There was a knock on the door. Not a knock of good news. Two men stood outside, hats in hand, eyes downcast. I remember my mother's face as she realized my father was not coming home. That's how our world fell apart. That night, we didn't cry out loud. We sat quietly, because sometimes the pain is too heavy to shed tears. The next morning, I became a man not by choice, but by necessity. That day, I walked miles and miles on elbow-cold streets looking for work. No experience, no skills, just a hungry stomach and a broken family behind me. Most people turned me down. Some didn't even look back at me until a small grocery store owner stopped me. He looked at my emaciated body, at my tired eyes, and said, "Can you work?" I didn't say yes. I said, "I have to." That was my first job. I cleaned floors. I carried heavy sacks. I arranged shelves until my hands bled. I worked before sunrise and sometimes fell asleep on the floor long after the streetlights came on. But I never complained, because every dollar I earned meant my mother could eat. Years passed, and work became my identity. Other children played outside. I worked. They laughed. I carried boxes. They dreamed. I survived. By the time I was 18, my hands were like old men's, full of rough and tumble stories. Then came the war. Many men left. Some never came back. I was left running the shop almost alone. Those were hard years, food shortages, cold winters, long lines of desperate people. And I stood there day after day serving them, because I knew what it was like to be hungry. One night a man walked into the shop. He had no money, only empty eyes. He picked up a loaf of bread and slowly walked towards the door. I could have stopped him, but I didn't, because I saw myself in him. I learned something important that day. Work isn't just for money. It's for humanity. When I was 30, the owner of the shop retired, and he handed me the keys. Just like that. No contracts, no formalities, just trust. He said, "Take care of it. I know you can." That little grocery store became mine. I didn't become rich, but I became something else. Responsible, strong, unbreakable. The years turned into decades. Every morning I opened the store. The same routine, the same smell of fresh bread, the same wooden counter. I showed up even when I was sick. I kept going even when I was tired, because stopping was never an option. At 60, people told me to retire. At 70, they insisted. At 80, they laughed. At 90, they were shocked. And now, at 99, they don't ask anymore. They just watch. Every morning I open that same door, slowly, carefully, but with pride. My hands shake now. My steps have slowed, but my spirit, still that 13-year-old who walked this cold middle path in search of an opportunity. Sometimes I sit behind the counter and all I see are people, young faces, busy lives. They don't know my story, and it doesn't matter. Because my story is not written in words. It's in every scar on my hand. It's in every wrinkle on my face. It's in every sunrise, the day I refused to give up. I'll tell you the truth. Because work didn't just feed me. It built me. And one day when I'm gone, that little shop will still be standing. Maybe someone else will open that door. Maybe some other boy, lost, hungry, disappointed, will come in. As long as I walk, I am alive. And these days, people don't look at my face first. They look at my walk. Slow, cautious, sometimes wobbly, a wooden stick in my right hand, and the weight of 99 years on my shoulders. Every morning I wake up before the sun is fully up, not because I have to. Because my body still remembers what it means to start a day. The stillness of dawn, a kind of peace that only comes when you've lived long enough. I sit on the edge of my bed. For a moment, I don't move. I feel my bones, my breathing, my heartbeat. Some days it's hard. Some days it's harder than others. But I still tell myself the same thing. Get up one more time. Standing up is no longer easy. It's a process. A slow push, a little jolt, then a balance. I reach for my cane. This cane is not just wood, it is time. It is every year, every autumn, every time I refuse to give up. Then I take my first step, small but mighty. Because at 99, every step is a decision. I walk out the door of my little house. The wind blows on my face. The cold is refreshingly real, and suddenly I am no longer 99. For a moment, I am that little boy again. I walk to work before sunrise. The streets have changed. The houses are different. The people are faster. Nobody walks like me anymore. They hurry. They don't look around. They don't feel the ground beneath their feet. But I do. I feel every step I take. That weight, that effort is the life inside of it. There is a park near my house. It takes me 15 minutes to get there now. It used to take 5 minutes, but I don't care, because I am no longer chasing time. I live my time. People often see me on that road. Some slow down, some laugh, some whisper. One morning, a young man stopped me. He looked strong, full of vitality.
Sir, why do you walk every day? At your age, shouldn't you rest? Rest? No, walking keeps me going. But it's cold. The fresh air clears my mind.
Dad, if I stop walking, my life will also stop. He didn't laugh. He didn't argue. He just stood there thinking. When I get to the park, I don't immediately sit down. First, I walk a little further along the same path. The only thing that reminds my body that it is still alive. There is a bench near a tree, a little broken old wood. That is my place. I sit there every morning. Sometimes I see children playing, running and laughing, falling. And I remember that I used to run there too. Now I even have difficulty lifting my legs. But I don't feel sad, because I have learned something that most people don't learn. Moving is not about speed, it is about perseverance. There were days when I would fall. Yes, even recently, once on that very road, my stick slipped. My body also immediately went numb. For a moment, I just lay there. I was looking at the sky and breathing heavily. People came running to help me.
Sir! Are you okay? Don't move, call someone!
Give me some time because I wasn't thinking about falling. I was thinking about something else. Will I still be able to get up?
And slowly and painfully I walked that day. Slower than before. But I walked because falling is not the end, but falling is the end. Now every step I take is not just a movement, it is a resistance against age, against weakness, against time. At night my legs ache and my back burn. Sometimes I can't sleep, but I don't complain. Because pain proves that I have lived the day. There will come a day when I can't walk anymore. I know I'm not afraid of it, but until that day comes, I will walk, even if it hurts, even if no one notices. Because walking is not just my job, it is my being. And as long as my feet touch the ground, even if it's just for a few steps, I live not to be forgotten. My name is William Carter. I am 99 years old, and if you ask me a simple question, how did you live so long? I will not talk about medicine. I will not talk about luck. I will talk about something much simpler. Food. Not the kind of food you see on TV. Not the kind people brag about. My food, quiet, ordinary, almost invisible. Every morning, I wake up before anyone in town. The house is silent, no noise, no footsteps. I slowly walk into the kitchen, this kitchen that has seen my whole life. My wife's cooking, my children's laughter, a noisy dinner.
Now, here I just turn on the light. For a moment, I just stand there.
Staring at the empty chairs. Then I start.
Breakfast is always the same. 2 eggs, a piece of toast, black coffee, no sugar.
I cook slowly, cracking the eggs with slightly shaky hands.
The sound of oil in the pan reminds me of the past.
Emily used to cook breakfast. She did it very quickly, effortlessly. I was never that good, but I learned, because life teaches you when it needs to be taught. I sit at the table, the plate in front of me. I don't rush. I never rush. I take one bite, then another. At my age, eating is no longer about satisfying hunger. It's about living.
There was a time when eating was about living. I remember those days.
The bitter cold, empty pockets, empty stomach, which felt like it was curling up in on itself. Once I went without eating for 2 days. No food, no money, just water. On the 3rd day, I walked to work, dizzy, feeling weak, but I still worked. Because I knew if I stopped, I wouldn't be able to survive. That's when I learned one thing. Food is not a luxury, it's a responsibility.
Now, I never waste a single grain or a single piece of food.
Lunch is very simple. Rice or roti, boiled vegetables, sometimes fish. Not too spicy, not oily food.
People often ask me, don't you get bored eating the same thing every day? I laugh.
Because they don't understand. When you know true hunger, you no longer chase after taste, you respect food.
In the afternoon, I drink a lot of water. No soda, no sugary drinks, just water.
At night, I eat very little, light soup, maybe a small piece of bread. I never sleep on a full stomach.
I've also learned a light body sleeps better, a calm stomach lives longer, but food is not just about eating, it's about remembering.
Sometimes I still cook one of Emily's recipes, even though I don't eat much, just to remember the smell fills the house.
For a moment, it feels like she's still there, running around the kitchen, humming softly, and I'm sitting there with a spoon in my hand, lost in time. There's a kind of loneliness that only comes at the dinner table.
When there's no one to say, "How was your day?"
But I have learned to accept it, because life changes, people leave. But habits remain.
And my habits? Simple food, simple life, no extravagance, no waste, no greed, just what is needed.
Maybe that is why I am still here, at 99 years old, still breathing, still walking, still eating, not for pleasure, not for comfort, but for one simple reason: to live one more day. Today, people look at me and they see I struggle to survive.
But what they don't see is the pain that has shaped it.
I didn't grow up in comfort. I grew up in struggle.
A struggle that leaves no marks on the body, but scars deep in the soul.
Life didn't stop after my father died. It got harder, colder, and heavier. We had no savings. We had no support. It was just me and my mother, trying to survive.
There were nights when the house was completely silent. Not a peaceful silence, a dead silence. Because there was no food to cook. There was no fire in the stove, no sound of dishes.
Just hunger. Hunger is a strange thing. First it hurts, then it burns, then it all goes quiet. And that silence, that's the most dangerous part, because that's when your body starts to give up. I remember one winter night when the cold was unbearable. The wind was blowing through the broken window. My mother wrapped herself in a thin blanket and gave me the only thick blanket we had.
I said, "Mom, you take this." She smiled and said, "I'm not cold." but I could see her hands shaking.
I didn't sleep that night because for the first time, I understood what sacrifice really meant.
From that day on, I promised myself that no matter how hard life got, I wouldn't give up.
But life didn't make it easy. When I was 15, I injured my hand at work.
The heavy box slipped, my fingers were bruised, the pain was unbearable.
The owner said, "Go home, rest." But I didn't go.
Because if I didn't work, we wouldn't have food. So I wrapped my hands in a blanket and kept working.
That was the first time I realized the pain may remain, but you can still move forward.
Years passed, but the struggle never stopped. There were debts, bills we couldn't pay, and days when it felt like everything was falling apart.
We almost lost our house once. I remember standing outside, looking at the door, thinking,
That feeling that tomorrow might not be ours, that feeling of not knowing where we belong, is forever. But somehow we held on, not because life got easier, but because I got stronger.
Then came another kind of pain. Not physical, not financial, but emotional. There were moments when I felt completely alone.
Even in a crowd, surrounded by people, because carrying a responsibility is a lonely thing. No one sees your fear. No one hears your thoughts at night. They only see you standing.
But they don't know how close you are to falling. There was a time when I almost gave up.
Yes, even I, one night, after a day's work, with no money, no hope, I sat alone in the dark,
And for a moment, I thought, what's the point of all this? Why should I keep fighting? Why should I suffer anymore?
the world didn't care, people moved on, life went on, and I got stuck. But then something changed.
Not from outside, but from inside, a faint voice, quiet, but firm. It said, if you stop now, the suffering you've endured so much for will have no meaning.
And that was enough. I stood up, wiped my face, and decided, no matter what happens, I will move forward, because suffering is not the end, it's a test.
How much can you endure without breaking? That's the test. Over the years, I've lost so much.
Opportunities, time, people, lost friends. Dreams that never came true, but I found something else, strength.
That which cannot be seen from the outside, that which lives inside you. Now, at the age of 99, people ask me, have you ever been afraid? I tell them, yes, I have been afraid many times, yet I have moved forward. Because courage is not the absence of fear, but moving forward.
If you looked at me today, trembling with fear, you might think her life was very strong.
But the truth is, my life was hard, and that's why I'm strong.
Because every pain, every struggle, every sleepless night has shaped me into who I am today. So if you're going through a tough time right now, if life seems miserable, if it feels like everything is against you, listen to me. Don't give up, because one day you'll look back and realize that those tough times were your strength. He didn't change my life. He became my life.
And if you ask me what the best part of my life was, it wasn't the success, it wasn't the survival, it was her.
Her name was Emily. I met her when I was 25, and life was still hard. I worked long hours in my little grocery store.
My hands were always busy. My mind was always worried.
I wasn't looking for love. I didn't have time for it. But life surprises you in strange ways.
One afternoon, she walked into my store. I still remember that moment, not because of what she was wearing, not because of anything extraordinary, but because of her smile. It wasn't strong. It wasn't dramatic. It was warm.
The kind of smile that made you think everything would be okay. He came towards the counter with a small basket full of groceries in his hand.
He said, "Hi." Just one word. But there was something in it that stuck in my mind. I shook my head. I couldn't say much. I wasn't good at words.
The next day he came again, and the day after that too at first. It was a very ordinary thing, customer and shopkeeper. But slowly something changed. We started talking. Small talk, ordinary things, the weather, work, life. He told me that he lives nearby and works as a tailor, that he has small dreams, but real. And for the first time in my life, I heard myself not by force, but by my own will. The days turned into weeks, the weeks into months. And one day I realized something. I waited for him every afternoon. I would look at the door, hoping that he would come in. And when he didn't come, the shop would seem empty. That's when I realized it wasn't just a feeling, it was something deeper. But I was afraid not of rejection, but of responsibility. Love means something to lose. And I had already lost a lot in my life, so I kept quiet.
One evening, he changed everything. The shop was about to close. He stood in front of the door, hesitant. Then he said, "William, can I ask you something?"
He lowered his head for a moment and then looked at me again.
"Why do you always feel so alone?" This question
Hit me more than anything else because no one had asked me that question before.
I didn't answer right away. Because I'm alone. You don't need to be alone.
That night, everything changed. We started spending more time together. After work, I started walking, talking about life. For the first time.
I wasn't just surviving, I was living at 27. I proposed to her. There were no big plans, no expensive rings, just honesty.
I said, "I don't have much, but I promise I'll never stop trying." She smiled and said, "That's all I need." Our wedding was small, very small, a few people, simple food.
It felt like the whole world was there because she was there. Life didn't suddenly become easy. We still struggled. We worked hard, there were hard days, but something was different. I wasn't alone anymore. We built our lives together.
She helped out in the store. She organized things much better than I did.
She laughed more than I did, she talked more than I did, and somehow she made everything light, even on the hardest days.
At night, we would sit together for a simple dinner, a quiet conversation. Sometimes there were no words, but that was enough.
Because love is not always noisy, sometimes it is just presence. Years passed and our child became a house full of noise, laughter, quarrels, life. And in all this he stood by me, not in front, not behind, but beside. This is real love, not perfect, not imaginary, but partnership.
Now looking back at the age of 99, I understand one thing. I didn't just marry him, I found my home in a man.
Even today when I sit alone, I don't feel empty, because somewhere in every memory he is still there. I have faced hunger, I have faced poverty, I have faced pain.
But nothing in my life compares to the day I lost her.
Her name was Emily, my wife, my home, my peace.
We spent decades together. Through the struggles, through the small victories, through the laughter, and through the silence.
She was always there, and maybe that is why I have never imagined life without her.
But life doesn't ask what you are prepared for. It was one quiet evening when everything began to change. She said, "William, I don't feel well." At first, I didn't think about it. It seemed like a small thing. It felt like another 5 tiring days, but the days passed, and he didn't get better. His strength waned. His smile faded. Something inside me started to get scared. We went to the hospital. The long white corridors were cold. The strangers were walking quickly. The doctors were talking in cautious voices. I remember sitting there, holding his hand, waiting. Then the doctor came. He looked at me and said something that changed everything. Cancer. That word was like the world stopped. After that, I couldn't understand anything else. All I heard was, "You're going to lose him." But I didn't want to believe it. I told myself, "No, not him. He's strong. He'll fight." And he did. Oh, he did.
Through the treatment, through the pain, the days when he couldn't even stand up straight,
He smiled. That's what I remember the most. He broke it. Even when he was hurting himself, he tried to comfort me.
One night I sat by his bed, the room dim with the soft sound of machinery.
He looked at me with tired eyes and said, "William, are you scared?"
I wanted to say no. I wanted to be strong, but for the first time in my life, I couldn't lie.
I said, "Yes." He took my hand, weak but warm, and said softly, "Don't be afraid." How could he say that? How could he comfort me? That night I realized one thing. True love is thinking about another person, even in your last moments. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and slowly she began to fade away. The woman who had once filled every room was getting quieter, smaller, until one day she couldn't get out of bed. I sat next to her every day, every night. I didn't go to the store. I didn't care about anything else because nothing was more important than that.
Then came the last night. Silence all around, too much silence, a silence that felt heavy.
She looked at me like she had in other times. It was as if he was memorizing my face. "William, I'm tired."
Those words hurt more than anything I'd ever felt in my life because I knew what they meant.
I held his hand tighter and said, "It's okay, I'm here."
He smiled that same soft smile I had the first time I met him,
And then he closed his eyes and wouldn't open them. That moment shattered me. Not loudly, not suddenly, but the room felt completely empty. The world seemed far away.
I sat there, holding his hand even after it had gone cold because I wasn't ready to let go.
That night I came home alone, opened the door, and for the first time in decades, there was no one inside.
No sound, no movement, no life, just silence.
I went to the kitchen and saw his cup and his chair and everything just as he had left it.
And I broke down. I cried like a man, not like a strong person, like someone who has lost everything.
The days passed. I don't remember much. I didn't eat or sleep properly.
Sometimes I would talk to him as if he were still there. "Emily, look, I made coffee. Emily, you forgot this." But there was no answer. The hardest part of losing someone is not the moment they leave, but the moments after when they never come back. Even today,
After all these years, I still feel their absence in this silence,
in the empty chair, in the space next to me. But I feel something more, gratitude.
because I found them, because I found love, and not everyone gets that. If you ask me now, does the pain go away? I will tell you the truth, no, it doesn't.
You just learn how to live with it because love doesn't end when someone leaves, it stays. In memories and habits in your heart. And sometimes late at night, I'm still here. Success is not what I have achieved, but what I have built. People often ask me, "Were you successful?" I don't answer right away because success means different things to different people. Some people think success means money, big houses, expensive cars, luxurious life. But I had none of these things. I lived a simple life. A small shop, a small house, a simple routine. So if you judge me by the world's standards,
You might say, I was not successful. But let me tell you one thing. I never begged.
I never gave up and I never stopped trying. That is my success.
I built my life from scratch. Without any help, without any shortcuts, just hard work.
Every day for decades, when I had nothing, I opened my shop.
And slowly, day by day, I built trust with one customer at a time.
People didn't just come to shop. They came because they knew I would be reliable, honest, and steadfast. And steadfastness is rare in this fast-changing world. I raised my children, taught them values. They grew up with strength, not wealth, and built their own lives.
And that was one of my greatest achievements because success is not just something you create, it lasts after you. After all the struggles, after all the pain, after all the losses, I'm still standing.
Still working, still alive at 99, right? I was never rich, but I was never weak.
And if you ask me today,
William, have you been successful in life?
I would smile and say, yes, I have, because I've loved and been loved.
Yes, because I never stopped trying to be better than I was yesterday.
I didn't train my body. I used it, and people often look at me and ask, "Do you exercise?" I smile because my answer is very simple. I never went to the gym. I never followed a plan, but I never stopped moving. That was my fitness.
When I was young, my life was my exercise. Carrying heavy boxes, standing all day in the store, walking for miles without rest.
I didn't do it for health. I did it to survive. But now I understand that surviving is what made me strong.
As I got older, my body started to change. My strength decreased, my pain increased, my speed decreased, but I never let myself settle.
Every morning I walk slowly. But even if I walk just a few steps, I walk.
Because I have learned one important thing. The body weakens when it stops, but survives when it moves.
I don't lift weights, but I lift my own body. Every day. These little things, getting out of bed, walking to the door, standing behind the counter, are my exercises now.
My legs hurt at night and my back feels heavy. But I don't hate this pain because it reminds me I used my body today. That's the difference.
Many people wait for the right time to get healthy, a plan, a method, a gym. I had none of these things. I had only one rule: don't stop moving.
Even at 99, I'm not trying to be strong. I'm just trying not to be weak. And maybe that's why I'm still here. Not because I've trained my body perfectly, but because I've never given up on it. Growing old is natural, but staying strong is a choice. And people often ask me, how do you still stay so strong? I don't laugh. Because I know they're not really asking about my body. They're asking about time. How did I survive? How didn't I break down? The truth is that I didn't follow any secret formula. I just lived by following some simple rules.
First, I never stopped moving, even on bad days when it was hard,
Because I knew the moment I stopped, my body would forget to live.
Second, I kept my life simple. Simple food, simple routine.
Simple demands, no excess, no unnecessary stress, because excess destroys more than it gives.
Third, I didn't let my mind age. Yes, my body has aged, my hair has turned white, my hands have started shaking, but inside,
I never told myself, my end is near, because the day you believe it, you will truly be gone.
Fourth, I accepted the pain but did not surrender to it. Pain came in many forms.
Loneliness, loss, physical weakness. But I never let the pain determine my end. I carried it, walked with it, lived with it. And slowly it became part of my strength.
Fifth, I remained grateful not for anything big, but for the little things.
A quiet morning, a cup of hot coffee, another day to breathe. That's good. Because gratitude keeps the heart alive. Now at 99, I am not trying to stay young. I am not trying to fight age. I simply respect life. And in return, life has given me the opportunity to stay. So if you ask me, what is the secret? I would say, There are no secrets, just small decisions made every day throughout life.
And those decisions? They build a life that even time struggles to break.
I lived right, but not perfectly.
And if I can tell you one thing for sure, I made mistakes. Not small mistakes, but real mistakes.
Mistakes that are not forgotten. Mistakes that remain even when everything else fades.
People often look back on my life and think, he did everything right. But that's not true. I worked hard, I was strong, I survived. But I lost a lot in the process.
The biggest mistake I've ever made? I spent so much of my life working and not giving enough to the people I loved.
There were days when my children wanted to talk and I said, "Not now, I'm busy." There were nights when my wife sat quietly, waiting, and I didn't even notice because I thought, I'm doing this for them, and maybe I was too.
But I forgot one important thing. Being present is more valuable than giving anything.
I've missed moments, small moments, but they're the ones that matter the most.
The smiles I didn't hear, the stories I didn't hear, the memories I didn't make.
And now those moments are gone, that's my regret. Another mistake I always made. Sometimes I believed I was right, even when I wasn't. I remember one time my son tried to tell me something important, but I was tired and angry.
I was so busy with my own problems that I ignored him. Later, I realized he didn't need my advice, he needed my attention. That moment,
I'll never get it back. Life doesn't give you a second chance. Some things are only understood when it's too late.
And maybe that's the hardest truth. I made mistakes with myself. I carried too much weight.
I didn't tell anyone about my pain. I didn't say it, I didn't speak my mind because I thought that's what a strong man does.
But now I know. Real strength is knowing when to let someone in.
If I could go back, I wouldn't change anything because my mistakes have taught me and they have shaped me.
But I would change this. I would spend more time with the people I love.
I would listen more, talk less, and I would remind them more often that they matter too.
Because at the end of your life, you don't think about money, you don't think about work, you think about people.
it's about loving moments. So if you're listening to me now, don't wait.
Don't think there's always time, because one day you'll look back and realize
The biggest regrets in life are the moments you didn't live. I haven't won everything, but I have found peace. And now, for the first time in my life, I can say it from my heart. I am at peace, not because life has been easy or because everything has been going well. Rather, it is because I have lived fully.
I have seen pain, I have felt loss, I have carried burdens that once seemed impossible.
Yet I am still here, and that is enough for me. My days are calmer now. No rush, no pressure. I wake up slowly, sit by the window, watch the light come in.
There was a time when morning meant work and responsibility.
Now, that means gratitude. I drink my coffee in silence. Not lonely silence, but a peaceful life, because I have made peace with everything I could not change.
I no longer chase vacations, money, or success. Those days are gone.
Now I value the simple things. A little quiet breathing, a cup of hot tea, a memory that makes me smile. Sometimes I still think of Emily, her voice, her smile. And instead of feeling sad, I feel something else, gratitude. Because I found her, loved her, and was loved. That's enough for a lifetime. My children now have their own lives,
busy and far away, and there's no problem with that.
Because I worked for it, to give them a life that's better than mine.
And they got it, so I don't feel abandoned. I feel complete.
At night, I sit in my chair, close my eyes, and I think about everything. The struggles, the hard work, the love, the mistakes, everything.
And I don't regret my life anymore, because every part of it has brought me here.
In this moment of peace, people often fear getting old. They think it means weakness, loneliness, the end.
But they don't understand. Old age is not the end. It's the moment when you finally understand everything.
You stop fighting life and start accepting it. And in that acceptance, there is peace.
I don't know how many days I have left, maybe a few, maybe more.
But I'm not afraid, because when my time comes, I will pass away quietly, not with any regrets.
But with one simple thought, I lived my life and never stopped.